slides, so it will be relevant to you as well, hopefully. Then we're going to talk about some of the benefits as well as some of the concerns that we might have as organizations using social media. And so to address some of the concerns that we're going to discuss, I would emphasize the need for effective social media policy as well as the use of social media analytics platforms. Alright, so let's talk about the state of the social web. We know that every day there are more and more people joining social media websites. Facebook, for example, already reporting over 1 billion Facebook users, and Twitter is 500 million of users worldwide. So even though we know that not all of the users are active, social media users are active, and there are some people who create multiple accounts, I'm guilty myself. I have a couple Twitter accounts that I manage for different purposes, for example. But even considering that, those numbers are quite impressive. So we also know that every day people watch a lot of videos. So multimedia content is really becoming really important in the social web. If we're looking at demographic groups, we see the rise among social media users among all demographics groups. As expected, the group that under 30 is the largest group among social media users, but other groups are not far behind, and again the numbers are going up. What is interesting to compare social connections that we make using social media tools and social connections that we make in person. So one of the benefits of using social media is that they allow us to maintain social connections much easier and distance and time. If you compare, I plotted some of the numbers based on research done on traditional social networks, which is essentially primarily face-to-face networks. The number of connections on average that we can actively maintain is less than 30 on average. But with social networking websites, we now on average maintaining 100 connections, and among teens this number is actually jumps to 300. So that's really impressive number. Of course, not all of those 300 connections would be your close friends, what we normally would consider as close friends. But still, even though there may be a lot of what we call weak connections, weak ties to people, it's still quite a large number, and this is because of the technology that enables us to kind of maintain constant awareness what's happening with our friends, colleagues, and in our organizations. The other trend in the social web, of course, is the mobile web, where you know that more and more people are accessing internet using mobile devices. And the numbers, again, are especially large among under 30 population, where interesting trend that a lot of people under 30 now accessing internet exclusively using their smartphones. So and the reason it's important is because those who access social media and internet using smartphones, they are also more likely to produce content. And this is kind of makes sense because if you have a phone with internet connection, it's much easier for you to take a picture and post it on your Facebook profile or other social media accounts. It's much easier to send a message or post a Twitter message, a comment on somebody's Facebook wall. So social media users who access social media through mobile phones are more likely to generate content. And this particular chart, again, data comes from among Canadian social media users, but it is representative of users worldwide as well. And you can see that the number of here it's tracked three popular social media platforms that focus on sharing pictures and other multimedia content. So Tumblr is a kind of blogging platform that's becoming more and more popular. and the number of users, unique users, are on the rise. But then you also have Pinterest, social networking to essentially collect and share your favorite pictures, is going up. And Instagram really took off, and you can see the jump, this third line. The jump was in the summer of 2012. This is when Facebook purchased Instagram, and so essentially the number of their users went up. But all these three platforms essentially are focusing on sharing some kind of multimedia content, and specifically pictures. So it does tell us that social media users are becoming more interested in sharing that type of content, and that will be driving a lot of future interactions. And even when we're talking about using social media to track what's happening during different natural disasters, for example, we also know that social media users frequently report what's happening on the ground through social media profiles. So during last year's superstorm, what we call it Sandy, it hit the northeast of the US. And a lot of people turn to social media to find out what's happening, but also to share information about their locations using videos or pictures. So using Instagram services to share pictures for that night, it was estimated that people share more than 300,000 pictures in just one night. And all this real-time pictures posted from their location to social media. So a lot of content. So essentially, to summarize, the most popular platforms are still Facebook and Twitter, and that's pretty much worldwide, even though there are some areas that would use, instead of Facebook or Twitter, they would use their national kind of similar platforms. But overall, worldwide, Facebook and Twitter is still #1. LinkedIn as established itself as a place for networking, professional networking, and they've been gaining users steadily. And Tumblr and Pinterest we'll talk about already, really focus on photo sharing content. And we'll also discuss how social networking websites allow us to increase number of social connections, and that the number of mobile users that access social media is on the rise. And those are important trends because they essentially tell organizations how they should reach out to their potential customers or clients. Essentially, if they know that people like sharing pictures, if you're trying to organize a marketing campaign, you definitely want to include some kind of multimedia content. So let's look at some of the social media use cases and looking at both private and public sector. Alright, so the first is looking at enterprise social networking websites called Yammer. So it's like Facebook or Twitter, but for organizations. And the reason companies like using Yammer is because only employees within that organization can see and access content shared by others in this organization. So that addresses a lot of privacy and security concerns that corporations might have when engaged in social media. So you have to use company's email account essentially to be able to connect to their network. But once you're there, there are lots of benefits of kind of joining this business enterprise social networking websites. You can find out, and this is results from one of the previous studies conducted with one of the Fortune 500 company that uses Yammer for their work. And so when this group of researchers interviewed, surveyed people in this organization, they asked, why do they use Yammer? Why do you like it? And some of the main reasons were to find out what others are working on in the organization. People also thought it was a good tool to reach out and ask questions. They also like it because they can find people who are interested in the similar projects. And of course, it can depend on the type of organization you're working in. Some organizations allow people to form their own projects, own teams, but so the third popular reason is finding people with similar interests would be really important. But even if the company doesn't really let you form your teams, you still can use that to reach out and ask questions, because perhaps somebody else in the organization already thought of a solution to your existing problem. The other example uses a company, telecommunication company here in Halifax. It uses a Twitter platform essentially to conduct customer support. So traditionally, you know that if customers have any issues, usually with the TV or internet connection, they would pick up phone and call them. But the challenge, of course, if you have too many customers calling, the lines are always busy, and nowadays a lot of customers expect real-time feedback, especially in the age of social media, real-time answers. So this particular company, it's called Eastlink, uses Twitter essentially to accept general questions about their services and address concerns if there's a services down or not. The screenshot here shows, I'm not sure how well you can see the actual messages. This is a quick interaction between Eastlink and one of their customers. So first, there's a message from the company Eastlink using their Twitter account. It's a corporate Twitter account that designed specifically for customer support. And they say, we're introducing our latest innovation, which is a remote digital video recorder, DVR, and set recordings from your smartphone and tablet for free. So essentially the idea that you can be traveling, but you don't want to miss a TV show or movie, so you can say to your digital video recorder at home, hey, record this for me and I will watch it later. And so they made that announcement. And then the next message coming from their customer, essentially saying that my DVR, this digital video recorder, main menu doesn't have an option called Enable Remote DVR. Is it only available on selected DVRs? And then the company jump in and send them a picture, a screenshot, how to actually set it up to enable that feature. And what is interesting here to see, Twitter shows you when the message was posted. So the question was 20 minutes ago, and then the answer was 5 minutes ago. So essentially, less than in 20 minutes, the person got a response. So you may say, maybe the person would have got a response sooner if they called, but this particular customer felt more comfortable communicating, interacting with this company through social media, just because that person and many others are more comfortable interacting online versus on the phone. And maybe it's more convenient so that you don't have to actually be on the phone. You can just send a request. Another interesting case study, I call it Marketing 2.0, but it uses a location-based social networking website. This one in particular called Foursquare, and it's one of the largest among location-based services, social networking websites, but it's not extremely huge. It's about 10 million users worldwide. And of course, in order for you to fully participate, you have to have a smartphone that can essentially report your location. But also, you want to be comfortable as a user to share your location with your friends. Just like on Facebook or other social networking websites, you select essentially people, your friends from the list online, among those who use the service, and then you can see if they update their location where they currently at. You can see where your friends are, and if both of you, shopping in the same mall, or you find yourself in the movie theater, you can find yourself in person as well if you're nearby. And as you can imagine, not all social media users would be comfortable sharing your location. But the other interesting feature for marketers, for organizations, for this particular service, is that they can place this kind of advertisement for their services, and more importantly, they can offer different deals and promotions for their services. If a person using this smartphone will say that will go to the store and publicly kind of declare through this website that they are inside this store shop. There's a feature called check-in feature, and so this is when your friends who follow you using this website Foursquare will see that, hey, you are in this store, and as a thank you, the company will give you a discount or some free gift or free drink, if coffee or something, if it's a coffee shop. Alright, so the final example from the private sector that I have is how companies use social media to conduct different contests. So essentially Pinterest, we talked about Pinterest briefly, but if you're not a Pinterest user, this is the website where you can essentially bookmark different pictures from the web. It doesn't have to be your picture, it just has to be a publicly available picture. And then you create a kind of album from different pictures on the web, and usually people create albums related to a particular topic. For example, related to cooking, or related to automobiles, if you like automobiles. The contest was run here in this example by a Carnival cruise line. So this cruise line asked people to create these albums, the collections of pictures of places that people want to go to. So some kind of exotic destinations for vacation they dream to go to. And then company randomly chose some of the people who entered in this contest, and they gave them free essential tickets for their cruise. And this is essentially the company was trying to follow the trends in social media because they saw that more and more people like sharing pictures and also bookmarking these pictures. And so essentially as a company they need to be aware of these trends. The other interesting case coming from public sector, and this one by Canadian Revenue Agency. So every year, when you pay taxes, this is the organization that would be collecting all these forms regarding to tax payments. And they also engage citizens in Canada through social. So they would run a contest where people can submit a short video entry which explain why people should pay taxes, for example, or they would create those short YouTube videos essentially explaining different benefits, credit benefits for any particular year for different demographic groups. Another example from public sector coming from the tourism industry. And for example, one of the provinces in Canada, it's called Newfoundland and Labrador, and they are kind of known for their running a very good social media campaign for their tourism division. And to attract kind of visitors to their province, they use different social media channels such as Facebook, Twitter, sharing pictures on Flickr, Pinterest, and other social media sources. Politics, a great example where candidates political parties using social media to engage everyone in political discussions and draw their support. And non-for-profit organizations using social media to raise funds for different social causes. For example, this is a case when a company ran a campaign called Beat Cancer. This was a fundraising campaign to get funds to support breast cancer research and awareness. And they asked people to post a message on Twitter that would include a keyword, a hashtag, Beat cancer. And every time somebody would post a message with this keyword, a sponsor would donate 5 cents per mention. And so within just 24-hour period, they were able to gather over 700,000 mentions on Twitter. So essentially, they were building awareness about the campaign, and at the same time, they were able to raise funds through that sponsor. And the sponsor also benefit, from awareness campaign as well. So these are different case studies that are coming from public and private sector, and I'm sure you experience some of the cases in this area already. But let's talk about what are the actual benefits for organizations to be involved in social media. So I summarize it in 6 different points. There could be more, but these I think are the main ones and easier to explain and understand. So first one, social media help companies to increase traffic to their websites. Essentially, we know that search engines tend to rely on the number of mentions or number of links that go to your website to rank your website within search results. So more links your website gets, hyperlinks, the higher it will be ranked in the search results. And so essentially now search engines are relying on social media content to track all the links to different websites. And if there are more mentions of your company, of your organization on social media with links to your main website, it will increase ranking for your website. Of course, you have to constantly maintain that level of kind of awareness, because search engines also have a different kind of time filter, because they will say, well, if it's the link and if this link is coming from social media, but it was posted last year, it should not be ranked as high as if its link was posted today. So you constantly have to maintain that awareness about your brand. The second reason, benefit, it can improve organization's reputation and authority on a particular subject matter. And this is because we know that more and more people turn into social media to find answers to their different questions or to follow their hobbies, their interests. And essentially, if you are in a particular business, you want to be visible online, and you want to essentially build your group of people who trust your content and know that you always post a relevant and up-to-date content within your area, within your field. And that applies to both researchers as well as organizations. We also know that social media helps to discover resources and experts. And this is also in part because social media allows us to connect to groups that we would not normally be connected to, either because of geographic distance or because of topics. And we know, for example, for academics, we tend to go to conferences within our own disciplines, right? And so you wouldn't normally, for example, I'm in information science discipline, so I would not necessarily normally go to, let's say, conferences on literature or conferences on business. But social media allows me an opportunity as a researcher to follow scholars in other fields who are also interested in my kind of subject area and connect. So same thing happens to organizations. So number 4, the benefit number 4, you can get, as a company, you can get instant feedback. So essentially, you're trying to run a new product, implement a new service maybe, and you want to test it before you actually roll it out, across all of your customers. So you can, put some kind of blog post or some kind of picture or discuss your plans for that service and see what people tell you about it. Are they excited about it? What else they would recommend? So kind of test waters without actually spending a lot of money to implementing it or advertising it in the more mainstream media. Number 5, builds new connections. So that actually relates to number 3 as well. It's much easier, and cost-wise in the sense of your time, to create new connections and find people who are interested in the same subject matter online. And number 6, it's one of the most important that I think, and I'm a little bit biased because I am studying online communities, but I do think that social media, one of the big benefits of social media is that they allow to form and support different online communities. And when I say online communities, what I mean is a group of people who share similar backgrounds, values, or interests, and they also meet regularly. And when I say meet regularly, it doesn't mean they meet face-to-face. It can be just primarily they meet online, but the point is that they at least have some kind of regular meeting place. And it can be synchronous, real-time, just like we meeting today, or it can be asynchronous, right? It can be something like online forum boards, discussion boards, where people post message and then come back next day to see if anybody responded. But the point is that it has to have some kind of regular basis in it. And also, so the main point that they meet regularly, they share some backgrounds and values, and they use some kind of computer-mediated communication platform for that, such as social media. Here are some examples of a couple of online communities that we visualized in the social media lab. Here is the network. Each dot represents a user on Twitter, so this microblogging platform, Twitter. And the connection between dots represent when they exchange some messages, so whether they mention someone else or maybe they reply to somebody else's message on Twitter, and it's all public messages. Essentially we applied algorithm that automatically kind of cluster and use different colors to show different subgroups within this community. And these are the people who discuss different environmental issues regarding oil sands. So it's essentially a way to retrieve oil that is mixed with sand, and a lot of it located in the province of Alberta in Canada. And there are some concerns from environmental activists that that may not be a very clean process. And so they turn to Twitter as part of their strategies to discuss this topic. But the question is, either the community has necessarily emerged through these discussions, or are there just random people talking about the same issue? And so that's why visualizing this type of conversations in the form of networks, is there a coherent community? Are there too many of these subclusters emerging? Is there a core group, central group of participants out there? And so for this particular example, we see that even though there are some subgroups emerging, and those are usually referred to different geographic areas, as we learned. Let's say Greenpeace Canada, there is a Greenpeace UK, and so they would have different kind of clusters. But at the same time, there are still a lot of connections between clusters. So it kind of tells us that there is some kind of sense of community happening among these participants. The other example, different network picture of different online community, still using Twitter. So it's still each dot represent a Twitter user, and connection will represent their interactions. But here you can see interactions primarily focused around two people, and I showed it with arrows. This is actually a book club, online book club, where people come together using Twitter and they discuss a book. And it can be real-time, can be asynchronous, but they first agree on what book to read, what book to discuss, and then they discuss it. So you can see that the model his name is Jeff Howe, and this is the person who came up with the term crowdsourcing. So he is the inventor of crowdsourcing terminology. But so he established this book club, but then they also, once they agree on what book to read, they invited author to join this community, Neil Gaiman. And so the author had a strong following base. A lot of people followed him on Twitter already. So you can clearly see in this network visualization that he kind of joined the group, but he also brought his followers to the community. And if you are trying to organize an online community around your topic, your organization, it's really important for you, based on this particular example, to include people who are already active and influential online, so that they can bring their own followers. You can try to build your own networks just to see what kind of groups you connected to. For example, LinkedIn, I like this feature. In LinkedIn, they have an experimental network visualization tool that will kind of visually show who are the groups, what are the groups that you connected to. And it's located, this visualization is located under the inmaps.linkedinlabs.com. So this is under the labs kind of website because it's still experimental. So if you're a LinkedIn user, you cannot do it for anyone, just for yourself. And I visualize this network for myself just to see what are the groups I'm connected to on LinkedIn and how closely related they are to each other. And there are multiple clusters appeared, represented by different colors. So each dot would be a LinkedIn user, and the connection would represent the people follow each other. So the largest cluster here is the School of Information Management that I'm part of, and a lot of nodes from this group, essentially my colleagues, but most of them are students and graduates. Because the way I use LinkedIn essentially to keep in touch with our graduates. And then I have a cluster of colleagues and also students from Faculty of Management. So this school is located at the Faculty of Management, so that's kind of makes sense. I also cross-listed teach some courses in computer science, so I have colleagues and students there. I teach some courses in health informatics, so I have a cluster there as well. So I graduated from University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign in the US. So there is some presence of my peers and colleagues from that institution, but it's not very large, and that can be surprising for some. But for me, it makes sense because essentially, with a lot of people with whom I studied back at the University of Illinois, I formed closer connections, and so essentially I would use something like Facebook to maintain those type of connections. I also have some researchers, colleagues in the field connected through LinkedIn, but I don't necessarily use LinkedIn for that type of connections because I would more likely to rely on academic specific tools designed for scholars to connect. And some examples of those would be academia.edu. Maybe some of you already using it. So academia.edu. There is also a competitor. It's called ResearchGate.net. So that's a competing service, ResearchGate.net. You can check it out. So those are 6 kind of general benefits that we can think of organizations might want to take advantage of right away. But let's talk about also some of the concerns that organizations may have when engaged with their clients and customers through social media. And one of the main concerns would be that the employees actually would post some inappropriate content to social media. And there are a number of legal cases where an employee was fired because exactly what I said, posting inappropriate content about their place of work. and even if that person used social media not during his or her kind of work hours, but at home using her computer, it's still legal to fire someone, at least based on legal cases in Canada and the US. Of course, different countries might have different legal case law and different legislations. But one of the early cases in Canada was in 2006, where an employee of a nursing home was fired because she posted inappropriate comments and pictures of the nursing home on her personal blog, and essentially the case was confirmed. The legal case confirmed that it was legal. It was legally for the nursing home to fire that person. The other case is interesting, and it's undecided yet. It's based on insurance claim that an employee of IBM in Quebec, here in Canada, going through the system right now, and essentially that person went on medical leave due to the depression, and the insurance company, because that person was insured through the IBM, through her employee, insurance company started paying the claims, the benefits, because the person is on a leave, medical leave. But then the insurance company found some pictures of that person lying on the beach, enjoying kind of sun, and not really looking depressed. Because again, the main reason the person went on a leave because of depression, and the company found public Facebook pictures of that person being very happy and outgoing. And so as a result, the insurance company said, well, this is the proof that you're not depressed, so we're going to stop paying you your claims. But of course, the person said that I'm essentially hiding my depression through these happy pictures on Facebook, and you should not be using my Facebook pictures in that particular case. And that will be interesting to see how the courts here will decide whether companies such as insurance companies can or cannot use individual personal social media content for these purposes. The other concern from organizational perspective, again, is that the employees may harm a reputation of the company by posting something on their behalf. And in many cases, it happens by accident. And there are recent cases when American Red Cross employee posted an inappropriate comment on their Twitter account related to drinking beer. And it happened that a person essentially used a software, a platform that allows that person to post messages to multiple Twitter accounts, and then you can decide whether you're using, you're posting this message to your account A or account B. But what happened that person connected both personal and professional accounts, and by accident posted the message that was supposed to go to personal account went to organization's Twitter account. And same thing happened with the other company, Chrysler, the car manufacturer company, which really posted the message with inappropriate content as well. So how can companies protect themselves from this? So we're going to talk about that in a bit. But let's talk about more concerns that employers might have. People may be using social media during work hours. And some surveys report that half of office employees do access Facebook during work. So are there any potential productivity losses? So it's something to consider as well. And how would you address it? If you simply block social networking websites from office computers, a lot of employees here would use smartphones, and they would still can access their social networking websites through their smartphone devices. So you really cannot control their devices if it's their personal property. So how can we address these concerns while still taking full advantage of social media? And so I really emphasize the need for effective social media policy that can essentially address many of these concerns and issues related to social media use. But at the same time, we know that most of the organizations still don't have social media policy. So only 20% of organizations worldwide have adopted some kind of formal social media policy. So it's really important for companies, whether they engage or not, or just thinking about being engaged through social media, to have such a policy in place. Plus, as you saw in some cases, even if a company is not engaged in social media, their employees can use social media. And so, what if they post something that you consider inappropriate? Do you, as a company, will have legal standing, essentially, to sue that person or fire that person for that reason? So that's why you really need to address these kind of questions and explain what you, as a company or organization, consider to be inappropriate and may harm your business to post. So there is an example. There are quite a few good examples of social media policies by companies from different industries. So Cisco is one company that's been active in social media, and they have a number of guidelines and policies that they advertise and promote among their employees, and it's publicly available that you can examine as well. So one of their statements in the policy, just to give you an idea what they emphasize, they would say you have to identify yourself as a Cisco employee. You have to keep applicable policies in mind. So social media policy is just one type of policies, but there are maybe other policies like code of business conduct available, and you should follow that as well. So you should not commit the company to any action unless you have authority to do so. And essentially, social media by definition is the public space, and whatever you say may be attributed to the company, not just you as an individual. So that's why you have to really protect the reputation of the company and don't post confidential or copyrighted information. You shouldn't make statements about companies' financial performances, and maintain confidentiality of internal-only information. Sometimes for employees it's easy to forget if they know something. That doesn't mean that everybody else outside of the company knows that or should know that. And with the social media, sometimes people forget that when they post a message, it's not just people who follow them. So essentially not just their online friends who can contacts who might see that message, but other people may have access to it as well. So then they say don't post anything that is offensive, harassing, or in violation of any applicable laws or the company's policies, existing policies, and also don't engage with news media to discuss the company's strategy or business without PR consultation. And the last one is becoming increasingly important because more and more journalists are starting to rely on social media to find their sources, or even just quote people without formally asking for their permission. So you really have to be careful as to what to post online. And social media policy really has to make sense to your organization. For example, here, as you know, we have hockey as a big sport here, and Hockey League, NHL, established their social media policy, and because they noticed that a lot of players would post inappropriate content during the game, and fans of the game would be offended, or players from other teams would be offended. So they say, we're instituting this blackout. So you're not allowed to post anything to social media 2 hours before the game time, and then until the finish of their media interviews after the game. And so this is where to start. So you don't need to start developing social media policy from the beginning. One of the resources online that I like in particular, it's called socialmediagovernance.com, and they have a list of policies organized by different industries. So if you're interested, that's the place I would start. And of course, social media is just one possible solution to address the concerns that we discussed. Social media analytics would be another place, and a lot of research that we're doing here in the social media lab would be under this umbrella of social media analytics. I would, as an organization, recommend to look at what other organizations are already doing. A good example of how social media analytics has been used is by Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. This one, a US-based organization, and they provide essentially different reports based on their social media presence and activities, where you can essentially see good examples how a large organization can be tracking their social media presence. And this chart, for example, shows 3 different Twitter accounts for this organization, and one is the blue line, focuses on e-health topics. The red line is their main account, and then the green line essentially represents number of people who follow them using Spanish on Spanish account. And clearly you can see that the e-health, the blue line and red line, are going up, but the green line, the Spanish language Twitter account, is not gaining a lot of followers. So if you're managing this account, you clearly want to know why your strategies are not effective. Maybe that particular community doesn't use Twitter, or maybe the messaging should be changed, or maybe there's something else going on. So really, analytics like this will tell you where to invest and where to spend more resources. But of course, when you're looking at who follow you, you really need to keep in mind that not everybody is the same as followers. For example, when we look at how social media was used here in Canada during our federal election a couple of years ago, and we were interested in see who are the people who follow main candidates for the main parties here in Canada. And there are 5 main parties in Canada, and so this bar chart essentially represents the party leader for these 5 parties. And we estimated, based on automated procedures, what's the percentage of all followers more likely to be spam or automated accounts, like bots, what we call them, right? And so we found that on average, there were about 20% of all followers more likely to be bots or spam accounts. And for some party leaders, the number went up to 40%. So one of the party leaders, about 40% of followers that look like the spam or bots. So essentially saying that that account was not really filtered out. The people who managed the account did not actively block those type of accounts, spam accounts. And some accounts that were better managed, they would have less. So for example, here, Elizabeth May, she's a leader for the Green Party. Her account had about only 10% of that type of followers. And there are new services coming out. Some of them are more research driven, some of them are more business kind of driven, such as Cloud, CRED, Peer Index. They can help organizations to kind of assess their audience and influence of their audience, right? Because you can be followed by thousands of people, but if they don't have huge influence, then your message will not go beyond your immediate group of followers. So important again to follow people, or being followed by people who are also influential online. And this is just a screenshot example of this service called Cloud with K that estimates the influence of a social media user. And this is an example of account for Tourism Nova Scotia, so the province where we're located in Halifax. And that particular service kind of calculates a number between 0 to 100, on which it kind of represents your social media engagement level, how often your content is being shared by other social media users, and so on. So Nova Scotia account got 80%, and that includes all of their social media accounts, including YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, Flickr, and others. But there are also other, more comprehensive social media analytics products out there. So definitely, if you are engaged or consulting organizations that engage with social media, it's could be good investment for them to take advantage of social analytics. All right, so this is trends, tricks, and threats of being social, and I think we're running out of time. But if you have a couple of quick questions, I will be happy to answer you right now. Or you always feel free to email me to my email gruzd@dal.ca, or tweet me at Gruzd. So do we have any questions right now?